Think back to where you were just a few years ago. How much more do you know now, and how much better are you at the things that you care about than even just a couple years ago? I bet there's a ton of things you can think about that you used to do that now you just think are kind of crazy. You know so much better now. And it's like back then, you just feel like you were so dumb, but at the time you thought you were so smart. What I love about working on things that you care about is that we're constantly learning and getting better. Over the number of years that I've been coaching, I feel like I've learned so much. And the coach that I am today, I feel as though I'm so much more mature and better than when I first started. On today's episode of the Knighton Runs Podcast, I'm bringing on my friend and fellow running coach, Jessie Gruca, to talk about the biggest lessons that we've learned over the years coaching adult distance runners. Welcome to the Knighton Runs Podcast. This is Coach Chris Knighton, and I hope you enjoy today's show. Today's episode is brought to you by the Knighton Runs training group on Patreon. If you'd like to support this show and download great training plans that are based on the concepts we're going to talk about today, you can go to patreon.com/KnightonRuns and sign up and get those plans right away. Not only will you be able to download all the training plans that I've created over the years, but you'll also be able to get your questions answered as you move along the plan throughout training. You can join our community and even get your questions answered by me. So check that out. And without further ado, let's get to the show. Hey, Jessie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Looking forward to having this talk with you. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So I know you through the coaching world. We're actually both part of a bi-weekly coaching group that gets together to talk about what's going on in our coaching practices and how to better grow and serve our athletes. But how did you get into coaching originally? And tell the audience a little bit about your background.
So I actually started running later. I was never cross country or track. I started in college when I didn't have high school sports. And that's when I decided to start my running journey of running a marathon in all 50 states. So I have 22 states down. So I also have 2 kids, and COVID kind of derailed my original plan to keep up. But during that time, I'd always self-trained, made my own training plans, and thought it'd be really cool to train other people because I loved putting training plans together. And COVID ended up being a good opportunity to actually sign up for my course and get my running certification, just because I could just do it from my home, which was nice and convenient. So I got my certification in 2021. And from there, I started building my business. And this year I actually started getting athletes when I started marketing and advertising more.
That's awesome. So you said you started running in college. Was that through a college club, or was it just on your own?
It started off on my own just to stay in shape. And then a friend who actually did cross country and track said, let's do a half marathon together. So that got me into it. And she ended up bailing because she didn't have a passport for the Detroit half marathon. So it was just me on my own. And then I was hooked after that.
Nice. I also never ran in school. Didn't do really any sports in high school. Didn't do any sports in college. So I came to it later in life as well. I'm kind of curious, what was it about running in particular that made you, want to get more active and start doing it? And then, beyond just doing a half marathon with your friend, making that big commitment to want to run a marathon in every state, seems kind of like a big leap.
So I was one of the faster athletes on my sports team, not thinking anything with running or track. So when I did my first half, it wasn't a terrible time. I got under 2 hours. So I felt I just liked being in shape and doing something and moving, because I don't sit well for long. And after that, so I was like, oh, well, the next step is a marathon. So I did a marathon. I actually BQ'd my first marathon, and not knowing really what that meant. But once I got into that, I'm like, oh, I can go to Boston and I see what this means, and had an awesome experience running Boston in 2013. It just kind of took off from there. It was a good excuse to visit friends and make traveling vacation because after college, my friends moved everywhere. So I'm like, it's a perfect excuse to go visit.
Yeah, the travel aspect of running is really fun. I actually haven't traveled like too much for running and like in particular, but before I got into running, hiking and backpacking was like my biggest hobby, and cycling as well. And it was just like an excuse to go on a vacation. It was a lot of fun. It sounds like from what you were just saying that though you didn't really run in school, maybe you did play other sports. Is that right?
Yes, I did field hockey and soccer. So there was a lot of running involved and like running warm-ups we did.
Yeah. So you were pretty athletic. And when it came to kind of translating that to running, did you feel like you were like a fish out of water, or did it come kind of naturally?
It came pretty naturally just because like warm-ups, like field hockey, especially our coach would make us run 2-3 miles for warm-up before practice. So it wasn't that hard to get into running. I think more like the form and the right type of shoes was the little details on perfecting running was a change.
Yeah. It's nice to have that experience with the other sports too. I'm sure you've probably learned quite a bit that like you've been able to apply to your own running and your own coaching. And even though it's maybe a different sport, like you were saying, a lot of it is kind of similar and applicable. I never really had that. And like when I was first getting into running, I mean, I really didn't know anything other than just like putting one foot in front of the other because I never really did team sports or anything like that. So when I became a coach, I was really learning all this stuff for the first time. And actually I was learning this like before I became a coach and all that. But when you decided to get your coaching certification and start helping others, what was like the main motivation behind that at the time?
So I think friends would start coming to me about training plans, and because I would seriously just write my own to get by. So I was like, oh, well, maybe I could make some money and start reaching out, because as runners, we know we all just love talking running. So if you get me on running, I'll just go off and keep talking about it. So I figured, well, why not? I can at least do training plans. And then I like the idea of doing the more one-on-one aspect of it and getting more involved. Because I think that made a difference. Because while I was making my own training plan, you're kind of, and then when I would make training plans for my friends, you're kind of more like hands off, like just expect them to go do it. I know I'm a very self-motivated person, so like I have no problem executing training plans. But I know some other people kind of wary on their motivation. So I thought like, oh, maybe a more one-on-one aspect would be influential to like support them on their running journey and help them reach their goals, and just here's a paper training plan, go off and do your own thing.
Yeah. So in the time that you've been coaching, and I do want to kind of bring the conversation to this, I'm sure there's lots of things that you've kind of learned along the way. I know that like when I first started coaching, and I guess I really started doing it about 3 years ago, the coach I am today is so different than the coach I was just 3 years ago. And I'm still fairly new at this. I know, Jessie, you're a fairly new coach as well, but it's amazing how much you kind of evolve your thinking and change over time as you gain more experience doing this. I really want to talk about like, what are some of these biggest lessons that we've learned that we can pass on to the folks listening to this and those and our athletes as well. Jessie, do you want to kick this off? Like when I ask you that, what's the first thing that you think of, the biggest lesson that you've learned coaching so far?
Just have to be adaptive, I guess, with other runners and even myself. Like sometimes there's injuries or sickness, especially with COVID right now. Like you don't know what's going to come up, and just have to adapt your training and change expectations for your race goals kind of thing. So I think that's been a big thing with some of my athletes, that we've had to change our plan throughout the course. Because like I said at the beginning, I would make a training plan and you go off and do it kind of thing. But now with the more one-on-one and trying to be more supportive, I need to like change things around for the training plan. I
think that's really important for any like distance training event, marathon, half marathon, 5K, we're always thinking about this race that's going to be maybe 3 months, 4 months, maybe in five months or more in the future. And when you sit down and think about like, what's the roadmap going to be to get from here to there, it's good to have like a template of where you're going to go. That's generally what I do with my athletes. I've created, pretty standard training plans, and that's what I start most of my athletes on. But as you know, no athlete follows it perfectly. If they did, that would be amazing. Like the training plan is written, say like the 20-week training plan, right? That's like written for perfection and nothing going wrong. And it being the exact thing that athlete needs every single day for 5 months. But it's just not realistic, is it? There's going to be changes along the way. So how do you actually go about modifying somebody's plan when things come up? And like, when do you know that that's the appropriate thing to do? Because the direction that it takes can be very different from what you originally envisioned, but you can still get them to the same place, which is kind of the fun part.
Right. Yeah. So when I'm doing that, there's a lot of communication on like what their needs are, then like what is actually going on. If it's an injury, like, do we need to take some time off? Can we do some cross training? Because we want to still keep the fitness there if they have a goal race. So I feel like the communication side has been a lot. And I know through my personal experience, I've obviously had my own injuries. I can figure out like a timeline on what we can do, what can we easily do, more strength work. So just trying to be as supportive as we make changes to attempt to get us back on track for our race.
When something like that happens to an athlete and, they kind of get off the trajectory that they were on, whether that's because of unforeseen sickness or potentially getting hurt, or just like something coming up in their life where they aren't able to run, right? One of the biggest challenges I deal with is actually helping that athlete maintain their focus and staying engaged. Have you learned anything in your time as a coach? Like, how do you keep that athlete engaged so that they come out on the other side like strong and ready to resume training where they can?
Yeah, that's a very good one. I feel like, it can be demoralizing when you're not on track and you're not able to stay consistent, but I try to frame it as, well, there are still other things that we can do to keep our fitness and try to have fun with it, that you're say they need to take like a week or two off. I try to frame it as like, this is fine. We're still early in training. We can still get back there. So like try not to lose motivation, but keep up on rehab or something if they need to do. So more trying to frame it as it happens. We can get back on track, trying not to derail us too much.
I like that a lot. I found that trying to put things in perspective is really helpful. And that's one of the things that a coach can really help an athlete do. Because when you're the one in training and like something comes up and you can't follow your plan the way it was written anymore, often it feels like your whole world is like ending. Like, it's like, oh my God, I can't run for 3 days. Like my whole training's ruined. I'm never going to be able to do this race. But a coach in many ways can play the role of a support person and mentally supportive, as well as like just being honest with the physical aspects of the training. It's like a week off isn't going to really hurt you. Even 2 weeks off isn't really going to hurt you. And if we look at where this is positioned in your training, it may or may not even be a big deal. Like I just dealt with a situation, I'm still kind of dealing with it with one of my athletes. She's training for the Philadelphia Marathon, which is in November. It's one of the latest marathons in the fall. And she developed like a minor tendonitis issue in her hip glute area and has had to do a lot of cross training for the past month or so. But I was just trying to tell her, like, we're literally on like week 1 or week 0 of Philadelphia training. I think of marathon training generally in like 18-ish week blocks, but for an experienced athlete, it could be, just like 12 weeks. For a more novice athlete, it could be longer. And what I just wanted to tell her is it's like, don't worry about Philadelphia. That is literally right now, as we're recording this, it's August. Okay. August, September, October. It's 4 months away. Like the tendonitis you're dealing with right now in your hip, that's only letting you run a little bit. In a month, that could be totally gone. In 2 months, that could be totally gone. And you're still going to have so much good time to train. If you're an athlete who has experience, so this athlete does, she's run 50, 60 miles a week consistently for a long time. Taking a little bit of time off to let something heal is not a big deal. You're going to be able to come back strong. And in some ways, looking at it on the bright side, having these little injuries is actually kind of a good thing if you frame it right, because it prolongs how long you're enjoying running. Like it's like, okay, you can't run now, but you're going to get wicked excited to run if you want to in a month. And then you're just going to, it's a weird way to frame it, but it's like getting hurt almost is like prolonging your running career.
No, I like how you put that. Yeah. Get that excitement back and something to look forward to when you are healthy to run.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about, how to frame in your mind your approach to like modifying your training and how we do that as coaches for athletes when things come up. But what about just like explaining the different types of workouts and teaching the athletes in the first place? You wrote down here that that's something you feel like you've improved with over time.
Yeah, I feel like now I have different levels of athletes that I'm coaching. So I feel like I've been running for a while. I understand like the marathon lingo and different types of workouts, and some friends that I have, we can talk all this marathon talk. But I do have some newbie runners who are like, they're going to run their first marathon. They are fresh into running and decided to get a running coach. So a lot of this, like what are strides or dynamic stretching? What does that even mean? So I feel like I've had to put more thought into how I explain things or put workouts and videos together to help them understanding what's going on. Because sometimes I feel like maybe Google is just harder to search through and they just wanted to hear straight from the coach. So I've been able to explain better and put together information to put that knowledge in to help them with their training.
I like that a lot. I think one of the best things about working with a coach like you, Jessie, is your athletes have a sole focus of who to listen to when it comes to training explanations, expertise, and what to do. And what I've found is the athletes who do the best are the ones who just tune out everything else, trust their coach, and does what their coach says, and give that a shot. That's not to say that every coach-athlete relationship is the perfect fit. There's some that aren't, but I've certainly found that when my athletes just do the training plan that I give, trust it, ask me questions about it when they're unsure about what something is, but by and large, just kind of follow it and don't go elsewhere and be like, hey coach, my friend is doing this workout, or I saw online that maybe I should be doing this thing. When you tune out all that other stuff and just have one clear focus of what you're doing, I've found that from an athlete perspective, it lets you kind of unload so much mental energy and just focus on the basics of running and doing the work, which I think is actually more important than some of just the technicalities of what is the absolute best thing for you to do at any given time. The other thing that I wanted to ask is, so And when it comes to explaining workouts and exercises to your athletes, I'm curious if you've changed your approach with that at all over time. So, and what I mean by that is, when I was a new coach, I was an over explainer. I think I was excited to tell everybody everything. And I would write these really long notes. I would try to get into the really minute details of everything. And now it's a lot more on kind of a need to know basis. But I also cater what I'm saying to the athlete. So I have some that I know like to hear some of the more technical stuff of running that I maybe think is important. And then I know I have other athletes as well who don't really care about that. They just want to, like, they don't care what a threshold run is. They just want to, like, know what it's supposed to feel like and know what how to do the workout. They don't care how it works. What's been your kind of evolution of dealing with that in terms of like communication style with your athletes and how you go about educating them the best?
Yeah, I feel like that was a big learning curve. I guess I had, when I first started, like, expectations. People knew what some of these workouts were, or how workouts just worked in general for running. But when I had this newer athlete join me for their first marathon, I think my wording just wasn't detailed enough for her. So that's when I did start doing notes and like information on her weeks to explain, okay, this is what a tempo run is, and this is why it happens. So yeah, I do pick and choose which athletes need this more detailed information now after having that. So at first I feel like I didn't give enough information, and now it varies. I do have things set up where I can give them a lot of information at the ready if they need to. But yeah, I think it depends on the different levels of the athletes and their experience with running.
Sometimes you don't know too, like how much somebody else knows. I've definitely been tricked by this a bit in the past, where like I'll have a conversation with an athlete initially, and I bring them onto my team, the Lions, to run with us and get trained by me. And they're like, oh yeah, like I've been running for years and I've run, this much per week, or I've done all these runs. What I learned is, don't take that and then think that they necessarily know your language when it comes to like run training. Because the same athlete who had, by all accounts, been a very accomplished runner, she'd run marathons, ultra marathons, many miles per week for many years, had all the gear, right? Like, she was asking me the most basic questions about just like athletic training in general. So like, even just, like I would write down a warm-up routine, simple warm-up routine, like 10-minute jog, some dynamic stretches and exercises. Here's a description of which ones to do and how to perform them. 4 by 100 meter strides. And like, it was just like, I don't know. She was just like, I don't know what any of this stuff means. She never trained that way before. And if you're somebody who is coming from maybe a sports background in school, where you learned warm-up routines, or maybe you've, self-learned this stuff online through books or YouTube or something, you understand it. But until you've been exposed to it, it's almost like a foreign language. So for this athlete, I think for the first 3 weeks or 4 weeks of us working together, it was like every single workout I had to explain just like everything about how to perform the workout. The only run that made sense was like just 5-mile run, go the most basic thing, right? But it was good once she got that. And I've experienced this a lot, because I've had a lot of athletes who have never really performed workouts before. Once they actually understand that stuff and how it works and why it works and how to do it and how to read the language of what it all means, like, it's really cool. It's like it totally transforms your running, and you go from someone who just goes out and runs to someone who, like, really understands like what they're doing and what the purpose of it all is. And your running becomes a lot more complex in a good way than if you're just kind of doing the same thing every day.
Yeah, I agree with the workouts. I think some of the athletes that I'm coaching, they've liked the variety of workouts once they understand what's going on and realizing what more they can do with running.
So what would you say is that like the primary type of athlete that you work with? Do they have commonalities amongst them?
A lot of them that I have been training have been moms, or they have kids. So a lot of adult athletes. So some might have like time conflicts with the school year kind of thing. So it's been a lot of juggling on timing and when they can run kind of thing to get workouts. And so I feel like most of my athletes have been more moms and half marathon and marathon runners mostly.
Yeah. So I actually just had my first daughter about 6 weeks ago. Very, very excited, very happy. I've been personally going through this scheduling transformation in regards to my running a bit right now. I used to have a lot more freedom of when I went to run and all that. And now it's much more of a coordinated effort with the rest of my life. I need to make sure that basically my wife is able to watch the kid if I'm going to go run. I used to run a lot in the morning, and now that's usually when I do daddy daycare. So I'm not. What have you found like works best for the athletes you were describing, where like their schedule is maybe a bit less flexible? Do you find that, trying to keep it flexible is good, or trying to like set a routine, whether that's time of day or days throughout the week, is best, just to have like that consistency?
So it was easier for me to relate to this because I'm also a mom as well. And we have to juggle between my husband and myself because he runs as well, juggling when we can each get our runs in. But fortunately for me, I'm a morning runner. So I get up before everyone's awake, run in the dark to get it done. So when talking with these athletes, it was, trying to schedule what time works for you. And for most of them, it's before school, before everyone's up, to have it done. So there's no excuses or things that come up later in the day, kind of thing. So just trying to balance like timing wise, like how long of a time can we fit in a run beforehand. And there has been, even like on weekend long runs, some of these group of runners have time during the week to fit in a long run if, say, their husband goes out of town on the weekend. So it's week to week. Sometimes we have to adapt. Normally, most of my runners do like their long runs on Saturdays kind of thing, but once in a while we do have to juggle it to make it work. But yeah, that's been another big communication, trying to figure out timing wise and what works with their schedule.
So yeah, I've been trying to find like that right balance for myself as well too. And it's actually been kind of nice, like working with so many different athletes with different schedules and different experiences, because I feel like I've gotten to learn like what works for different people and come up with a lot of different strategies where I can, potentially help some of my athletes when they're struggling with this. I feel like one of our important roles as coaches is to push people's boundaries and get them doing things that they weren't doing before they reached out to us, right? So like sometimes the scheduling can be an excuse to not run so much. But often there's legitimacy to it, right? But when you see like maybe other parents or other busy people who are able to get it done, that there's a way. So when someone is struggling with that and, maybe they're not completing all their runs and they're saying some reason why, it's helpful to have just like that experience of knowing that it is possible and there are ways to make it work and we can figure out a way to make this work for you. And then ultimately, like, you're either going to get your training done or you're not. And then that's maybe more of like a motivation issue, but at least we can kind of address like how to best fit this into your week. And I think that for different athletes, like the best way to train can look pretty different. I've been trying to be a lot more flexible with this when it comes to like assigning the training that I give to my athletes than maybe I was in the past. I think that when I first started coaching, I had a very running first mindset, or like maximizing the running is the most important thing. And I do still think that, but this season in particular, I've been working with a lot of athletes who need a bit more flexibility. Maybe they're not quite as experienced runners. They have different interests where they don't just necessarily want to run all the time, or they're dealing with some, physical issues where they don't necessarily want to be running like 5 or 6 days a week. So I've been building in a lot more flexibility with things like cross training, riding bikes, swimming, weightlifting. It seems like more and more of my athletes are interested in like doing these alternative things to just running, and like figuring out how to make that all work so they can still accomplish their running goals has definitely been a challenge, but I feel like I'm getting better at like balancing these different things in a way that works well for them. Do any of your athletes like rely pretty heavily on non-running exercise as part of their training?
Most of my runners do just prefer the running aspect, but I've been trying to like incorporate some like strength work with it. I'm like, let's have some balance, try to fit some time in with strength. I do have one athlete who like loves their Peloton, so like still wanted to incorporate some other work. So they have like the Peloton bike, so they still wanted to have some bike times. I'm like, that's fine, we can do cross training. As a newer athlete, that's probably good to balance out the running load with it. So like I'll let you pick a workout to include with it, to give some flexibility, to let them do things that they still enjoy while still trying to get some miles in as we build up in our training.
One thing that I've been doing with a lot of marathoners right now this season is just having them do like almost all of their speed work on cross training devices. So I have a lot of athletes right now who actually have Peloton bikes, and they all came to me. It was really funny. And they're like, Chris, we're not using these anymore. And I kind of laughed because that's like so obvious. I mean, you're going to buy a piece of exercise equipment, use it for a month and then not use it, right? Like that's been the case forever. That's why like most treadmills and spin bikes become closed racks. But I wanted to incorporate these things into their training because I think that if used correctly, they're really powerful. So a lot of my athletes, I guess I've used them in 2 different ways. This season, I have a lot of new marathoners, first time marathoners, and they have a pretty good base of running, but it's not necessarily quite as high as maybe I'd like it to be in terms of like how many miles per week they're running. So we're using the bike as a way to get like non-impact exercise, high intensity exercise, and like a good aerobic stimulus, and then keeping the runs just comfortable. So we've been using the cross training, which has mostly been spin bike right now, as a way to get high intensity for runners who maybe haven't yet built up like the running strength and endurance and like the skeletal muscular resiliency, where I wouldn't necessarily want to go send them on like a fast track workout or tempo run. I think we're still doing like a little bit of that, but I've been mostly just focusing on having them like get the miles in at a more comfortable pace. And I feel like what I've learned with marathoners of this level, and I guess to be precise, I'm mostly talking about people who want to do a marathon off of like under 40 miles per week. They generally are going to see more benefit just from like running as much as possible than they necessarily are from like the types of workouts that they're doing in my experience. Because though everyone struggles with hitting the wall in a marathon, and it doesn't matter if you've trained 20 miles a week or 100 miles a week, there's still a very high likelihood you're going to hit the wall in the marathon. The athletes who are training on the lower end of that mileage spectrum are definitely more likely to hit the wall and not be able to finish the 26.2 mile distance. So I almost think like something that's changed with me and I've learned along the way is it's like, if running the distance is going to be your primary challenge, then doing the speed work is not necessarily as important, or it's something that you want to be more careful with. And I'm trying to frame that in kind of a nuanced way, because I think there's so many benefits to speed work that make you a better athlete that go beyond just how well you perform in the marathon. I think overall they're going to make you a better athlete. But if we're talking specifically about preparation for the marathon, and if that's someone's like immediate goal, I think that you want to be a little bit careful with how much you do that and how much emphasis you put on that when it comes to training athletes in that like 20 to 30 mile per week range.
Yeah, I agree. I noticed that with my lower mileage week. I'm like, okay, we just want to make sure we can get time on our feet, let our joints and everything absorb the load. So yeah, that's why we do some cross training workout, just to hopefully keep our endurance up. But I've noticed that's different when I'm used to people running 5-6 days a week at least, compared to only 3 or 4 has been a change. But I know we'll get there. Athletes can still get it done. Yeah, just the goals and the types of workouts that we do are different.
One other note that you put down here for me is a lesson that you had learned is being open to your running experiences in a way that allows your athletes to kind of relate to the challenges that you've worked through in the past. And then, also being willing to listen to them and what they're facing in that moment in ways that maybe they're similar to what you've experienced or different. Would you like to elaborate a bit on that and like how, your personal experiences and both those that are same and different can help you guide your athletes?
Sure. I feel like as a coach, you want to be relatable and have experiences to help your athletes and understand that as a coach, like you're also human. You've gone through some injury experiences or other things. So you want them to like trust coming to you, that see that you can work through it. Like I've had my fair share of injuries, from stress fractures, IT band syndrome, you name it. And also had my own struggles with like underfueling and learning to realize like how important fueling actually is. Cause I've gone through stages of running on empty before going, but now I've noticed a difference that eating something before I go out, fueling more during my long runs has made a difference, to not be afraid of the sugars and gels kind of thing. And because I know we all can get into the mindset of thinking of eating clean. And even I personally had gone through that, but learning from that, how much your body actually needs and for fuel wise to get through your runs has been a game changer for me. And I want to teach others like not to be afraid of food and how it can really up your running game if you are serious. And so I want runners to feel comfortable coming to me. And also for me, learning to step back and just listen to them and hear what they have to say, kind of thing, and not trying to overstep like, well, I've been through this. This is what you need to do, kind of thing. So trying to find the right balance of not oversharing, but still letting them know that I can relate to them. I've been through this. Let me help you get through this, kind of thing.
The relatability aspect of it, I think, is so essential. One of the things I like best about interviewing coaches like you, Jessie, is it's like we're all different in our experiences. What we've gone through, the struggles in our past to become the runners we are. We're different in our ability levels and our interests. And though we all love this kind of sport of running, we're all unique individuals. So the type of athletes who are going to be attracted to working with you as a coach are very likely going to be different than the ones who are attracted to working with me as a coach. And that's great because we can both help different types of people in different ways and give them kind of the best fit. When it comes to an athlete relating to like what you've accomplished or the struggles that you've been through, I think that is so key because we're able to show people the way through the things that we've dealt with in the past. Like we have that personal firsthand experience. Whereas on the flip side, there's other things that we haven't worked with. I haven't worked with college athletes, for example. I coach high school athletes. I'm getting better at that. I coach adult athletes, and I primarily work with athletes who are training to become faster in the marathon. Many of them want to run a BQ, right? But I can't necessarily relate to the struggles that like someone in college is going through, or maybe a much more elite runner than me who feels like, they're trying to prove something to the greater world, like acquire more recognition for their performances or that kind of thing. Like those aren't experiences that I've, for example, dealt with. Similarly, like you have all this experience as a parent. I'm slowly starting to gain those and feel like I'm able to relate with my parent athletes a bit more, right? But it's like, I think you get what I'm saying. It's like we all have these experiences, and that's what makes us work best with the athletes we're working with. I just wanted to close by saying that one of the biggest lessons I feel like I've learned as a coach over the years is that being patient with your running and taking like a zoomed out long-term view of it is the best way to improve over time and enjoy the sport long-term. I think that a lot of times we get focused on like the next race, and when we have a good workout, we're pumped. And when we have a bad workout, sometimes we can be devastated over that. But if you just kind of zoom out a little bit and see where things are trending, if they're trending in the direction you want to go, then things are good. Not every race is going to go good. It's not supposed to. Not every workout's going to go good. It's not supposed to. But if you back up and it's like, where was I 6 months ago? Where was I a year ago? Where was I 2 years ago? If you're going in the right direction and you're feeling better about your running, you're performing better, you're enjoying it more, then you're doing the right stuff. And there's many different ways to get there. Hopefully some of the lessons that we shared today and our experiences will help you, but being patient with it. Think of the athlete you want to be 6 months from now and a year from now, and what would you want to do today to become that person then? Often that's not what you would do if you had a short-term goal. So thanks for coming on the show, Jessie. It's been great chatting with you. Where can people reach out to you if they're curious and talking more? And do you have anything exciting that you're working on this year you'd like to share?
Well, first, thank you, Chris. I liked picking your brain and hearing your lessons that you've learned, and hopefully can help me as well as a coach. This year, I'm going to attempt to get a BQ this year. I have a full marathon in South Carolina in December. So just trying to get back on that after having 2 kids. It's been a journey. So, but everyone can reach me on Instagram. I'm at Running with Roses, and also on my website, runningwithroses.com is the best way to reach me.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessie. And I'll include links for Jessie's website and Instagram in the show notes of this podcast, so you can check them out there. Anything you wanted to say, final words before we sign off, Jessie?
Thank you for having me, and I hope everyone continues to stay healthy and happy running.
All right, so that's the episode. Thank you so much for listening, and be sure to subscribe on your podcast player. That way you won't miss the next episode. If you enjoyed today's show and learned anything, I'd love it if you would leave a review on your podcast player as well. That really helps recommend this show to others who might benefit from it, and it lets me know that you're enjoying the content I put together. And before I go, I just want to let you know 3 different ways that you can improve with your running this week. Number 1, be sure that you've downloaded a free digital copy of my book, Run Faster Marathons, The Proven Path to PR, from my website. Just go to knightonruns.com and click the button that says free book download. You can also get a paperback or Kindle edition of it from Amazon if you prefer. Number 2, check out the training plans that I've put together that are on the Knighton Runs Patreon page. Just go to patreon.com/KnightonRuns, and you'll be able to download all the training plans that are based on the concepts I talk about in this podcast and within my book. And number 3, if you're interested in one-on-one personal coaching with me, you can apply for coaching on my website at knightonruns.com/coaching. So until next time, happy running. I hope your training's going well, and I'll catch you next week. Bye.